For those of you guys that don't know, this is my daily driver. It's a 2002 BMW E39. Mine just so happens to be a 5-speed, and because it's a 530i, it has the M54 B30. Super well known for just being a pretty good engine. Even in the higher mileages, they have some coolant problems, which is just normal for a whole cooling system made of plastic, but the mechanical stuff on them is really good, and when you turbo these cars, they're pretty good. It's just a really good engine, good car, and I've really grown to enjoy this car. And today I'm just going to go ahead and talk about what I've done to it that I haven't talked about before. So I did upload a video about this car before. It was actually me prepping it for autocross and then kind of walking around it. At the time, it was on lowering springs, had some fake carbon mirror caps, had an intake. These wheels, obviously, these don't change because they're the factory wheels, and I do really like them. And like an M5 sway bar and just a couple other small things. But today I'm going to go ahead and segment it into drivetrain, suspension, interior, just to make it a little easier for me to kind of understand, because I end up forgetting a lot of things I've done to this car. So that's what I'm going to do. Along with that, I'll talk about exterior. So I'm going to go ahead and first just start with it. These wheels, I guess I'll include, these are Style 42 BBSs. They came factory on these cars if you got a sport package. Mine so happen to be the 17x8 plus 20 versions, and they have 225, 45, 17 Falcon RT615K pluses on them. So these are a 200 tread wear tire, kind of rated for the track, but I have them on just the daily. They last pretty good. I got them really cheap off a friend because he just happens to have the same size as me, so I ended up just taking his old tires from him. They do really good on the autocross. Actually, the day I threw these tires on for autocross, I realized how good of a handling car this actually is, especially for its weight. I mean, it weighs 3,600. At the time on the autocross, though, I do gut the car, so it weighs a lot less. Actually, I think this weighs 35 because it's a manual. But the point is, it's still over 3,200 pounds, and it handles really good for being on a 225, and you just wouldn't suspect it handling good for being a sedan, but it does handle, like I said, really good. Along with the aesthetics of the car, we have these Euro headlights. They're not typical Euro headlights because I have retrofitted Q45 mini projectors into them. So the Q45 is an Infinity product with a factory projector that's about 4 inches or 6 inches. It's pretty big, and it has this design in it where it's like 7 little projectors in one, and I've always really wanted to do something with that sort of setup, and this was the perfect car for it just because the shape of the headlights works out really well. So the Euros give me the clear side markers, and then I ended up doing the retrofit again. Like I said, I actually had to open up the headlights. These are OEM headlights. Split them open, put the bulbs in them, made sure they all worked right, sealed them up. I did clean them and polish them. They kind of faded away since then, but I'm sure these will clean right up and turn like glass again. So probably gonna end up doing that sometime soon. But for now, they're great. The high beams are super bright. They look cool. I do really love the clears on these cars, especially if you get a black one. They're just so good. And it's cool to have something different that no one else has with the Q45 retrofit. If the bulbs ever do go out in the Q45 retrofit, I'll probably just do quad projectors. So I'll just do 4 projectors similar to the OEM style. I think it'll look really good. I've seen it done on some E46s, and like I said, it does look really good. So I'm probably gonna end up doing that. But yeah, been good. Headlights, this car has OEM xenon headlights because it is a higher spec model. Luckily, mine is not a base model. It's a sport, Shadowline, and a bunch of other little things. So it has some really desirable features actually from the factory, which is amazing. Exterior wise, I did take off those carbon style mirrors and just put stock black ones back on. Looks a lot cleaner with the car. I did that actually recently just because I got really tired of the car, but I kind of grew out of it. I didn't really ever love it too much, but I did just end up keeping it because it did look pretty good at the time. Back here, probably one of my favorite angles of the car, especially now with the new fitment. This car has 25mm spacers all around, and you can't see the front fitment now because the wheels are turned, but the rear fitment's just so good. This is about as close as you can get it to the fender on these cars without it rubbing, because these cars don't really camber gain as much as like my Nissan does, so this is about all you can get, but it looks really good. It's super functional. It was rubbing before, I rolled them, so now I rolled the fenders, and there's a good amount of room now, so it shouldn't really touch it, and if it does, it's going to be very little, so I'm not too worried about that. This car looks so good now with these wheels and the spacer setup. God, I just can't get enough of it. It's so good. And like I said, the front, still 25mm spacers on them. They feel really good when the wheels are straight. I'll go ahead and straighten them out later in the video so you guys can see that. But amazing setup. I guess one thing I didn't really touch on that kind of counts as cosmetic thing is going to be the lug conversion kit. So it has wheel studs now from ECS Tuning. So they're pretty long, which allow me to run the spacers safely. You can see in there, actually the stud almost pokes through the lug nut, but it's just about a ½ inch in. These lug nuts are like this long though, so it's really not anything to worry about. Plenty of thread engagement on there. I did order shorter lug nuts because I don't really love the chrome ones on the silver wheels, so I got black ones. And I will also be switching wheels soon, which is related to a completely different thing I'm going to be touching on in a newer video after this one is filmed. The last aesthetic mod I've done to the car is going to be this AC Schnitzer style roof spoiler. I found it at a junkyard. Looks really good. These cars have kind of short rear ends. If I go ahead and stand like to the side of it, the front end's really long compared to the rear. So they look a little bit funny from the side, but this roof wing definitely gives it a little bit of flair. And it looks way better. Like this angle right here, it's so good. Like, it's perfect. I just love it. But yeah, maybe I'll get a little spoiler on the trunk, like an M5 style spoiler, but until then, this look is good, and I do really enjoy this look. Go move on to the drivetrain now. I'll talk about the engine, mounts, and all that stuff. Here's the infamous M54 B30 I was talking about. I've done a good amount of maintenance to it and just some upgrades here and there. A couple things to name are just going to be the thermostat. New thermostat when I bought the car. New water pump. It's a metal drive though, so that way it's not plastic like the OEM water pump is. It has this 3.5-inch intake here, which is a Cosmic Racing, I believe, or Cosmo Racing, something like that. And the original one, the filter goes here. I don't know why they switched. They used to have a style that puts it in the bumper, but the new ones don't. I went ahead and added on another like 45-degree elbow, also 3.5 inches, that moves the filter in the bumper down here. Actually, I don't know if you guys can see it, but it is in there. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I'll probably try and include another picture of it. But yeah, intake is in the bumper. Gets colder air, way better throttle response, sounds pretty good. So that's kind of what I have going there. As for some other stuff on this car, we do have metal overdrive power steering and water pump pulleys from Turner Motorsports. Those just kind of increased the throttle response a bit, gave me a little more power, and made it more reliable, just because the OEM pulleys are plastic on these cars. For whatever reason, they decided to do that. I did end up resealing a good amount, so this car had a really bad oil leak when I bought it, and I didn't fix it up until a couple months ago. So I've had it leaking for like a year, and it's been super bad. So it was always kind of difficult to keep oil in it, just because I'd have to top off so often with the amount it was leaking. So what it ended up being was the oil filter housing gasket. I ended up replacing that. While I did that, I did the Chase Bays Vanos supply line. So that's in there now. It's a pretty nice line. Chase Bays makes decent stuff. It's a little bit like weird to get it to fit in, but now it's in and it's good. And then I also did the oil pan gasket. So that was kind of a pain in the ass, but I did end up getting it done. And while I was in there, I also wire tied the oil pump nut, because these engines, while being good, they are known for spinning off the oil pump nut at higher PM. And since I do autocross this car, it does sit at higher PM quite a bit whenever I end up doing autocross. And I just wanted to knock out all the reliability issues right as I could. So the oil pump nut's done. That's a huge thing. I'll go ahead and include pictures of that right now as well. Just use some wire tie. Drilled my own hole through the stock nut because I didn't want to pay 20 bucks for a nut with a hole in it, and then I ended up just throwing it on. And it's been good. I mean, I put a couple thousand miles on it since then. No issues, not a single drop of oil or anything from this car. So it's been great. I'm super grateful that everything ended up working out pretty good. Behind this M54 B30, we do have a ZF 5-speed manual transmission. Again, super hyped that this car came with that from the factory. That's mainly the real reason I bought this car. It was $1,000, but the main sway for me is that it was a manual trans. Along with the rest of the drivetrain stuff, we have polyurethane engine mounts. They're going to be the rev shift, the stiffest ones you could buy. I believe they're 88 or 90 A durometer. They're pretty hard. And then it has solid transmission mounts, which I'm not a big fan of, but I am switching out to the rev shift ones soon, whenever they end up coming in the mail. And then it actually has ECF differential bushing, or ECS differential bushings as well. They're poly diff bushings. Those are really hard to do, but kind of worth it, just because now the whole car is done drivetrain wise as for bushings. And the car feels really solid, actually. Like, it handles pretty good. And the whole thing just feels good with the whole drivetrain sort of set in the car and just solidly mounted. So I really recommend doing that to anyone that's thinking about it. This car feels great now with all those mods done. Another thing some well-versed E39 people will know is this isn't the stock intake tube. The factory one, it has a huge airbox on the bottom. This is from a 330i, which is an E46. It just deletes that little tube and gives you a little bit more intake noise, deletes that resonator, and then you're good to go. I'll go and hop on suspension of the car now. So actually quite a bit is done. It's all done really cheap, and most of it's actually from the junkyard from other cars that end up coming in. So one of those is going to be these D2 coilovers. These are the track spec coilovers. They have a 12K front, 9K rear, really stiff springs, too stiff for the suspension. I think they just put the stiffer springs on them and call them track coilovers. Right now I don't really love them too much because they are pretty bouncy, but I think when I put good springs on them, which is going to be Swift springs, I'm probably going to do 9K, 7K. That'll probably be its own video. I'm sure they actually do really good. These D2s seem like a pretty good quality product, and I'm just happy to get this car on some real coilovers because it was on lowering springs before. And while they were good, this just gives you so much more adjustment. It allows you to change spring rates and do dampening stuff, and actually add camber to the car. This has camber plates now, so I was actually able to get a good amount of camber out of the front end. And if I do want to do caster, I can do all that stuff as well, which again, super hyped about that. Along with junkyard suspension pieces, one thing you probably won't be able to see is actually going to be these compression rods in here. They have spherical inner bushings. They're going to be called the monoball bushings. They're Turner, and those are also on the car I got the coilovers off of. So those are amazing. They made the brakes feel really good. Before I did have the Poly Powerflex Poly bushings, and they were pretty good, but again, finding these, I just had to get them instead because obviously they're going to be better than the Poly ones. And I'm a big guy on like good bushings and spherical stuff, so this was definitely the way to go, even if it's a daily. Those are the kind of bushings that don't really increase MVH at all. They just improve braking feel a lot because that is actually the arm that takes all the braking force from the front end. So car brakes really solid, super stable at high speeds. This thing's great now with those bushings. Before I touch on brakes, I'll go to the rear end. It still has the D2 coilovers like I was saying, and it has an M5 rear sway bar. So the rear sway bar is about 2 millimeters thicker. That actually helped out the understeer on this car quite a bit, along with the camber. So it handles pretty good now. These cars, many people don't know, are 50-50 weight distribution from the factory, so they handle pretty good, but doing those little things really improved it a lot. Rear suspension bushings besides the diff bushings are not done just yet, just because I haven't gotten around to it and the rear hasn't been an issue. I did do the camber arm and toe arm, or not the camber, the two upper arms. I did those when I first bought the car just because the ball joints are really bad on them, so they're just OEM replacements. I'll probably end up going with an adjustable arm before or after when I end up switching out, but for right now they're good. I believe that's it for suspension mods. Literally just the coilovers, rear sway bar, and the bushings in the front. The car handle's pretty good. I mean, maybe I'll do a front sway bar, but so far the rear's good, front's good, and like I said, it's a daily, so it's not really high budget at all. I try to keep this thing ran pretty cheaply, and so far it's been working out, and so far I'm really happy with the result of it, actually. Got a really good car, really enjoying it. I'll go ahead and move on to brakes, and as for right now, they are factory calipers and rotors, so they're just going to be the 530i Sport package, which is actually going to get you a bigger rotor. The rotor's actually pretty wide. Like, these rotors are a really good size. They're actually the same size as the ones on the Z, and the pad's really large as well. So right now I'm running Carbotech XP10s in the front, and then in the rear, off the same car I got the bushings and the coilovers from, it had EBC yellows all around, but it was a base model, so the only thing I could use off the brakes were going to be the rear pads, because the front rotors and pads change, but the rears are different, or the same, I believe. So these are just going to be EBC yellows inside of there. Equals out the brake bias quite a bit, because before I was running stock pads. The brakes actually came with this car really good. They were just OEM Techstar or BMW replacements, and they were really good. Did really enjoy them. This car had great brakes. It was probably the best braking car I bought, just from whoever I bought it from. Had the best brakes out of any car I bought. Which is pretty good. I mean, this car, like I said, been great. It's still in the same rotors. They're going to be changing really soon. I do have a new setup that's going to be going on. I'm super excited about that. You guys will see more in the future. But brake-wise, that's it. I don't know what fluid's in it because I didn't change it. Stock lines, stock everything. Just pads on front and rear. With the hood closed up, I'll go into the interior. First off, I'll start with the tint. It is 20% on the front windshield, 5% on every other window. It's super dark. It's kind of look I wanted to go for. These older black BMWs look so good with just black window tint and just fully dark end out. With the normal, just clear stuff, like tinted taillights and headlights are not the vibe, but the rest of it all being black, it just gives off its own personality. Like this thing, it's kind of funny. I don't really want to talk about it like it's this crazy thing, but pulling up to places, people just like look at it, and I feel like it has this presence that's just like unmatched. For just rolling up to any parking lot or something, it brings a vibe to wherever it goes to, and it's just a good one. So yeah, that's the tint. Window tint's really dark, super comfortable actually, so you can still see out of it pretty good. It is a quality tint, but during the day it keeps the sunlight out, so it stays really cool inside the car, especially with the working AC this thing has. AC is amazing, so it stays really cold actually. It's super comfortable to be in, because I am driving this car quite a bit in work, or going to work and coming back home from work. So that was definitely a big thing for me, is to get good tint on the car and get it really comfortable to stay inside. Moving inside, I haven't really done too much in here. We have the factory M steering wheel because it is the M Sport package. Had an M shifter as well. I went ahead and did the garage just short shifter with just the base knob. I made the boot fit on here. And then it's pretty good. I mean, the shifter's not great because I do need to rebuild it actually. These are really well known to have the 5th gear lean. It actually has it right now. So you'll see when you shift it over to 5th, it's gonna kind of stay leaning with this trans, which is kind of annoying, but you can drive around it, so it's not a huge deal. That's what I've been doing for the past year, and it's worked out fine. I do have all the bushings to redo this, so I have the poly bushings. I have a new shifter cup in there, and then I actually have the new selector at the front. It's like a bearing from Garagistic as well. So I have the whole shifter to redo. I'm just waiting to do that stuff when I do the detents and the trans to get it shifting right. But I might even change this car out to a 6-speed if I can get a good deal on a 6-speed trans, because right now it's a 5-speed, and the 6-speed would just give me an overdrive gear and make it a lot better for highway miles, which is what I do a lot of. So might end up switching out to a 6-speed, but for now 5-speed's fine. Again, super duper happy this thing is a manual car. If it wasn't, probably wouldn't be modifying it, probably wouldn't even have it still. I probably would have just sold it off and got a bit of money off of it. In terms of looks in the interior, it's all pretty much complete. It's just missing like little things like the bolt covers for the door handles and stuff like that, but it is a black interior. I did do the black trim on the sides, so this is the OEM piano black or graphite. I don't know what they call it exactly, I kind of forgot. There is a whole list of the trims. I do want to do like an M5 sort of trim, but for right now I do like the black just because I like it being pretty dark in here. So this is with the tint and everything. It's just a nice look. It's pretty dark, it's quiet in here, it's nice. It's a good place to be, especially for long drives. And then with the cluster being orange, it's just a nice look. So I'm gonna go with it. I mean, I do really like it. No real plans to change out the trim. I did change it from wood. It was like a darker wood before. The wood's actually nice. Like I kind of do like it, but I like the black a lot more. Just because it feels like a better place for me, I guess. Also doing an Android head unit, so it's going to be the E39 head unit. So it does have Android Auto, wireless, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'll go ahead and turn the car on. I'll start it so you guys can hear it up. But yeah, this is the head unit. It matches really well with all the factory lighting. And like I said, it does have Android Auto, so it'll automatically connect and show maps and all that stuff. This also allowed me to run subwoofers on the car because it does have a sub in the back, because I do listen to music a lot, and again, a daily, so it kind of needs it. Now with the wheel straight, you guys can see the front fitment I was talking about. There it is. It's not perfect, it's not like the rear, but it is pretty damn good, and you can see the tires pretty good from the front. Like, the front head-on image this car gives you is like, it's a nice look for sure, especially with the retrofitted headlights. You guys can get a good look at them now. Factory projector with the Q45s. I'll try and get close so the camera will autofocus to them. There you go. They look really good. They match in with the factory halos. Like I said, I might end up redoing the Q45 projectors, but it's definitely a good look for now. There's not really a bad angle on this car. Like, everything looks pretty good. Everything's relatively clean, especially just for the age. This car has probably 200,000 miles. If you guys didn't notice, the cluster doesn't work, so I don't even know the mileage. I just know it's over 180,000. That's the only thing I know about the car. And like I said, for reliability, this thing's been amazing. Honestly, I think if and when this engine ever blows, I don't know what I'll do. I really do like the car, and by the time it does end up going, I'm probably going to have a lot more done to it. I'm probably going to like it a lot more than I do right now. So maybe I'll end up throwing a new one in. Maybe long term this car gets turboed or supercharged and just becomes a build and isn't the daily anymore. But as for right now, I mean, I really like the car. Thank you guys for watching. A lot more to come with this thing. I'm going to be doing springs, brakes, and a few other things to the car soon. So you guys will see it here and there. I just want to make an update about the whole thing.